My guest is Chris Marchese. He's the mining analyst for the Morgan Report, which you can find online at silver-investor.com. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Great to be back.
You're saying that people are wondering about why is silver acting the way it is on the markets right now. There's a disconnect between silver and gold. Usually they, I guess, dance very closely together, but this time the Dancing with the Stars partners are doing their own little jig off to the side. Why is silver kind of standing out for you right now?
Well, this is going to sound a little conspiracy theory type.
Oh, I love that.
But, the banks control, the commercial banks, that is, which are, let's face it, government entities. I mean, they rely on the Fed. The president appoints the chairman of the Fed. So it's more incestuous than they make it out to be. As in, they're calling the central bank a private entity, which it might be technically, but in reality it's not.
Well, you have your 10, 12 biggest banks. They run the Fed, and then the government gets to appoint a chairman. It's like the mayor in Toronto. I mean, the city council does all the work, thank goodness. But, he's there kind of as a figurehead. I'm in charge. That's what the chairman of the Fed does. Hi, I'm in charge. I'm the figurehead. But the real work is done by the other people on the council. In the case of the central banks, it's the biggest banks in your country. They all get together and say, what's good? Not for your country. What's good for the banks?
Oh,
Remember
yeah.
that old saying, what's good for General Motors is good for America?
Oh, yeah. I mean, people don't realize this, but a big part of why we did QE1, QE2, QE3, QE4 was to make sure the banks would remain solvent. It wasn't to stimulate economic activity. I mean, part of it was, but they needed to inject a lot more reserves to the banks so, another 2008 wouldn't happen on, a much larger scale, because the amount of the dollar value of derivatives that are trading are just, it's unbelievable.
So how is this affecting the price of silver?
Well, silver and gold has been they've been kind of bottom balancing since late June, and we could test the lows or even break the lows that we put in on June 28th. But I would expect that to only last maybe till the end of January, and then after that, I think they'll start to move up.
Well, we've already seen gold producers stockpile now. If the prices out there aren't what they want or expect, they're just stockpiling. They know eventually the prices are going to go up, and if they don't put extra gold on the market, that's going to put the price up as well.
Oh yeah, and there's other things developing that will lead to a shortage in gold and silver going forward. For example, I don't know if we've talked about this, but the increase in the mining royalty tax in Mexico. So it was 4% for since I can remember, and it was set to go to 5%. But their president Nieto, if I remember correctly, decided to jack it up to 8% for precious metals companies, and that's just too big a burden.
Well, first of all, it wasn't budgeted for.
Yeah, well, he was really sneaky in what he did. He put it in another bill, his so-called fiscal reform bill. So, you couldn't shoot that down and pass everything else. Everything had to get passed.
Yeah, an omnibus bill. They do the same thing in Canada. They do the same thing in the U.S. It might be the Free the Monkeys Act. But in the Free the Monkeys Act, there's a 25% tax on using an ambulance. What does that have to do with freeing monkeys? But they said, well, if you don't pass the Freeing Monkeys Act, we're going to leave, there's no way that tax will not go into effect.
Yeah.
So you're bribed. Okay, we'll accept it. Here they did an omnibus crime bill, but then they added budgetary items and closure of Coast Guard bases and stuff like that. And we went, how is that reforming the Criminal Justice Act?
Yeah, exactly. And, Peru kind of did more or less the same things a few years ago, and they saw the negative consequences that it brought about. And now they're trying to become a lot more mining friendly, and their actions so far have dictated that, they have become more mining friendly. So Mexico is just, it's gonna,
I call it
they're really going to feel it starting next year and accelerating in the future years. Like Gold Corp and Grupo de Mexico came out a few weeks ago and said, we're not going to invest, some odd billion in Mexico, because of this. And
well, exactly. I mean, mining is a high-risk business. I didn't know. I just saw it on business television the other day. Only 1 out of 3,000 projects really works out.
Yeah. And,
that is an incredible risk in any kind of business.
Oh, yeah.
Chris, we're going to talk about platinum now and how that is probably going to be on the rise shortly and maybe going to scary prices as well.
Yeah, I would also include palladium in that. I think we talked a few shows ago about the supply dynamics, with, the U.S. auto loans, being given out to anyone really. And, because of the urbanization of China, a lot of, these materials are needed for catalytic converters.
Yes, for the first time ever, China is going to adopt what we would call Western pollution standards, like you have in California or Europe.
Yeah, and
so that means you're going to have to use palladium and platinum in catalytic converters, and that's going to drive the prices up just simply because there isn't a lot being produced because of the political problems in South Africa.
Oh yeah, that and like palladium, for example, don't quote me, but I think roughly 20 to 25% is produced in South Africa, and almost all the rest is from Russia. But Russia stockpiles some of it, so they never sell all of it onto the market.
So they like to keep the prices high that way.
Yeah, and it's probably a strategic investment as well, similar to what China has been doing in terms of accumulating, real assets and diversifying away from the U.S. dollar via treasuries.
You were the one who was saying China this year is going to buy up all the physical gold that's produced.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So the gold that we see laying around is what they call old gold.
Yeah, and, I really think that at these prices under $1,300 an ounce, that the last month and a half buying on the Shanghai Gold Exchange will really pick up again.
And another boost for silver too is India, because the government has put huge import taxes on gold. They've switched over to silver.
Yeah, they've always liked silver, but obviously not to the extent they have gold, just because of the cultural influences. But now it's becoming so hard to get gold there that, they really don't have any other choice.
Well, didn't you say that gold now has surpassed drugs as the most smuggled thing in India?
Yeah, and, that's all that's reported, so who knows the real figure. Sure,
and with the corruption there,
yeah.
Who's getting paid off? It's something that it happens all around the world, but other places, the border, say with the northern border of India being all mountains and everything. Look, it took how many years to find Bin Laden in Pakistan, because allegedly he's hiding in the mountains, apparently just sitting in a resort. But still, it's very hard to keep track of, the camel traffic or the donkeys going across the border. It's not like you can scan them.
Yeah.
So that's where, this precious metal is moving. Another demand on silver, too, is industrial use. Maybe explain that.
Oh, yeah, that's just increasing at a very robust rate. For those that don't know, it's the best conductor of heat and electricity. So it'll continue to have more and more uses, especially with prices being suppressed.
Sure, people say, why not use some silver? It's cheap right now.
Yeah, exactly. So, and, the whole precious metals complex just looks so great right now in terms of buying.
I know people expected, the prices to really jump up and be much higher than they are right now, but one of the market analysts I talked to said this is what we kind of call the dramatic pause.
Yeah, and
usually if there's a rapid
the same thing, I think it was in 1977 over 1976 in with regards to the correction that came about. It was
that was the Hunt
50%.
Brothers. Yeah, don't forget the Hunt Brothers in Texas tried to corner the silver market to manipulate it, and I remember silver going from about $7 an ounce up to $50.
Oh yeah. And technically what they did wasn't cornering and wasn't illegal.
No.
It's an interesting story.
I just remember the picture of the 300-pound twins on mini bikes.
Yeah.
That's the image in my mind. And I'm going, what do these guys have to do with silver? Well, it worked for them. They got the prices up to where they wanted, then they sold everything, I think. And of course, that brought the prices down.
They were forced to liquidate.
Yep.
For antitrust or something the government made, but
now it's institutions that do that.
Yeah.
Entire governments. When the
they're allowed to do it.
Yeah. But like when we had the big drop in gold prices back in June, I thought, oh my God, China has decided to put a few million tons of gold on the market. And it turned out it was the U.S. Some country,
and the Bank of England.
Yeah, I knew it was some country that did it. It was much too big for an individual.
China is they're really smart, and they probably loved it because they got to buy
their gold back for less.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's why they do it. And don't be surprised, like you said, if it happens again, but the mining companies have caught on. If the prices go down, keep producing, but stockpile it. Don't sell it then.
Yeah, exactly. Although, at these prices, it's getting hard to do. But, I'd like to go off on a little tangent, if you don't mind.
That's what we do here.
For those that, want exposure to the precious metals, but, maybe don't want to own the physical asset and are, too scared to invest in the operators because it is an inherently risky business. I'd just like to bring up, the 4 royalty/streaming companies. And basically what they do is they operate as a miner. I mean, they're given money for, based on production of a certain mine. But the way it works is, so for a royalty, say, Franco-Nevada wants, 2% of, the gold sales from, this one mine, and it's, being developed. They'll pay, 30, 40, 50, 60 million up front, and a few years later it'll start cash flowing. But they'll just receive the net smelter revenue from production. They won't have to incur the capital costs, which, is great because being able to operate in a capital intensive industry without incurring the capital costs is, it couldn't be better. And so then a company called Silver Wheaton furthered this idea in 2004, whereby they acted like a bank of sorts, and they lend, for example, if they were interested in a deposit mining company A had, they would they would provide half of the capital required to construct the mine up front, and in return they get to buy, say, 25% of the silver or gold production for the life of mine at a low fixed cost per ounce, typically $4 per ounce of silver and $400 per ounce of gold. And they've really, just done a fabulous job with these models. And, basically 4 companies, dominate this niche. And anyone can just go back and look at the performance. Obviously, it hasn't been good over the last year and a half, but they've done far better than the actual mining companies. And they have dividends, so...
It's kind of like a big mutual fund, only it's silver or gold.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And, we love silver, obviously, more than anything else. So, we prefer Silver Wheaton. I would, recommend any listeners to check that. Franco-Nevada, Royal Gold, Sandstorm Gold out, if they want exposure to the precious metals, in a conservative fashion.
Chris, always great chatting with you.
Yeah, you as well.
Thanks a lot for being with us. My guest has been Chris Marchese, mining analyst for the Morgan Report. If you'd like to send any questions to him, you can to chris@silver-investor.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. You can forward your comments to us to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Silver123.net is a silver saver program designed to be as simple as possible. For as little as $50 per month, you can set up and create an automatic cost average buying program that will get silver or gold sent to your door on a monthly basis. The first step to creating an account is easy. You will supply some basic information. Next, you will add a bank account from which you will schedule your purchases. Scheduling purchases makes saving easy. Silver Saver is customizable and allows you to control the amount and the date of purchase. Once you are signed up, you are then given your affiliate code. Now you can save in precious metals and also market this program. You can use email, web pages, and multiple forms of social media to share the Silver Saver program. Silver Saver will reward you generously with physical silver or gold whenever someone you refer becomes a saver. Silver Saver not only provides you with a share code, but also allows you to place your own banner ad on a website of your own. Silver Saver is one of the best ways to start saving and accumulating gold or silver, especially at these levels. Visit silver123.net and start saving today.